There's something about deer on a game camera that keeps you watching. A twig snaps, a shadow slides between the trees, and then out of nowhere an animal steps into frame. Here in the Texas Hill Country, you can see two very different deer show up on the same landscape. The whitetail is the one most people recognize instantly, but the one that really grabs your eye, especially on camera, is the axis deer, also called chital. And if you've ever watched a chital buck move through the brush like it's on rails, or seen a white-tailed doe appear and disappear like smoke, you've probably felt it. These animals aren't just deer. They're the result of a long story built from strange anatomy, old evolution, and a relationship with humans that goes back farther than most of us realize. So in this video, while we watch these deer do what they do, I want to pull back the curtain. Because once you understand what a deer really is, you start seeing every clip differently. And it starts with one simple question: what makes a deer a deer? Most people would say antlers, and honestly, that's a pretty good answer. But deer are the mammals we strongly connect with antlers. But antlers are only one feature that instantly flips a switch in your brain regarding deer. So here's the twist: antlers aren't just horns. Horns are permanent. They keep growing year after year. Think of the black buck antelope, or maybe a goat. But antlers are different. A deer grows a new set each year. It uses them through the breeding season, and then sheds them after the rut ends. So when you see a buck with a heavy rack on camera, you're not looking at a lifelong structure. You're looking at something the animal rebuilt from scratch, every year. And antlers are bone. They branch out, they change shape by species, and most of the time you only see them on males. There's a well-known exception though: caribou, also called reindeer, where females can grow antlers too. And very rarely, a female of another species might produce antlers, but that's not the norm. Now with the deer you're watching here, whitetails and chital, antlers are part of the story, but they're not the whole story, because there's actually a deer out there where the males don't have antlers at all. Instead, they have enlarged upper canine teeth, almost like tusks. That species is the Chinese water deer. It's a reminder that deer, in terminology, is bigger than what we see in just Texas. The deer family has some weird corners. And across the deer world, antlers range from simple spikes to huge, complex shapes with multiple points, like a living crown. So when you see a rack on camera, it's not just decoration. It's that deer's identity, its history. It's a trait shaped by competition as well. And that leads into the next layer of the deer's story, the part most people don't think about. A deer is built to eat quickly and survive while doing it. Deer are herbivores. They live on vegetation. But they don't eat like a horse. Deer are ruminants. That means their whole digestive system is designed for processing plants effectively. They have a specialized stomach system with multiple chambers before the true stomach does the final digestion. And inside that system, microorganisms break down tough plant material, stuff the deer itself couldn't break down on its own. And this changes how the deer behave. A deer can step into an open area, it can feed pretty quickly, and take in a big amount of vegetation, and then retreat back into cover. That matters because it reduces the time the animal spends exposed where it's most vulnerable. So if you've ever watched a deer on a camera and noticed a pattern, how it eats quickly and then exits really fast, and then reappears, that's not random, that's built into their design. They can grab food fast and then move somewhere safe to finish the job. That's where you get the idea of chewing the cud, when food is brought back up to be re-chewed and swallowed again. It sounds gross, but it's one of the smartest survival tools herbivores have ever evolved with. It also means something important for the footage that we're seeing. Sometimes the most boring deer clips, where the deer's just standing still, it's chewing, there's not much going on, are actually the deer doing one of the most essential things that it has to do in its life. Now as you watch these deer, here's a small detail that helps you talk about them a little bit more clearly, because deer terms can get confusing pretty quickly. In North and South America, male deer are often called bucks and females are does. That's the language most of us grew up with. But in some species like moose and elk, the males are called bulls and females are cows. And in many old world species, males are called stags and females are hinds. Even the young have different terms depending on the species, fawns or sometimes calves. So when you say buck on a Texas ranch camera, you're not just naming the animal. You're using a regional tradition of words that humans built around deer over centuries. And that relationship between humans and deer is huge because deer are some of the most widespread and successful large mammals on Earth. There are roughly 50 species of deer living today, give or take, because scientists are still sorting out where some species lines begin and some end. And in some groups, what looks like one species might actually be multiple, once you look closely at genetics and anatomy. Even deer that seem similar can have surprisingly different DNA and even different numbers of chromosomes. One example comes from muntjac, an old world group of deer where chromosome numbers can vary dramatically between species. That's wild when you think about it. Animals that look basically like deer can be built on very different genetic blueprints. And deer don't just vary by genes, they vary by where they live and how they survive. Some deer species are common because they spread far and thrive. Whitetails are a perfect example of that. They're one of the most well-known and successful deer species in the Western Hemisphere, with an enormous natural range across much of North and Central America and into parts of South America. And in many places, they're not just present, they're actually abundant. Other deer are common in different ways. Some have a wide distribution around the top of the world. Some have been introduced far outside of their native lands, like the axis deer. And then there are deer that are complete opposite. They're rare, they're limited, and they're hanging on in small corners of the map. Some species exist only in narrow regions, like certain deer in parts of Asia, or deer restricted to specific islands. There are deer that were once believed to be gone entirely from the wild, surviving only in captivity until people began careful reintroductions. So deer isn't just one story, it's 50 stories, and humans are tangled up into almost all of them. Because deer matter to people for food, for subsistence, for hunting, and for culture. They also matter in a practical way, whether we like it or not. Deer can cause major crop damage. Deer vehicle collisions are a part of life in places where deer are common. And deer are also a major prey source for predators. Because deer eat plants, they can shape the ecosystem around them, for better or for worse, depending on how many there are and what the landscape can handle. But here's the line that hits hard when you think about it. As much as deer have mattered to humans, humans have probably had an even bigger impact on deer. People have raised and managed some deer for a long time, and people have moved deer into places they probably should have never lived. And sometimes those introductions can create problems, because an introduced deer can compete with native wildlife, can change the habitat, and create consequences nobody expected at the start. Kind of like the feral hog problem in Texas. That idea, deer living outside their native range, connects directly to what you're watching in Texas. Because on your camera you might see a native deer like the whitetail, and then a deer like the chital, an old world species sharing the same brush, the same trails, and the same feeding zones. It's not just two deer. It's two different lineages meeting in one place. And that leads into another question. Where do deer live in general? Naturally, deer occur on most continents, but they're not everywhere. They're native across huge stretches of the world, from cold northern regions down through the tropics, across the Old World and the New World. And some species occur in both hemispheres. Some are restricted mostly to one side. And deer have also been introduced to places where they never naturally existed, including islands, which is like the axis deer that populate Hawaii, and countries far from their original ranges. So the deer family is global. But deer don't just live anywhere. Each species has preferences. Habitats can vary widely, and even within a broad habitat type like a deciduous forest, there could be multiple layers and microhabitats that deer respond to. Uplands, bottomlands, open canopy, closed canopy, thick understory, and open understory. That's why deer behavior can look so different even in the same county. And it explains something that probably you've seen on camera without realizing it. When multiple deer species overlap, they don't always use the same land the exact way. They can divide the habitat up, shifting their movement patterns, sometimes by time of day, sometimes by where they feed, and sometimes by where they bed. And those patterns can shift with the seasons too, when food and cover change. Some deer migrate between summer and winter ranges. Others move up and down in elevation. Some move with monsoon seasons, shifting away from floodplains during wet periods and returning along rivers during dry periods. Even if your Texas deer aren't doing mass migrations, the principle still matters because deer movement is a response to food, cover, pressure, and competition. So that trail you're watching isn't just a random path. It might be part of how deer share space without constantly colliding. So when you see an axis deer or a whitetail on camera, you're not just watching wildlife, you're watching a story that's been written over millions of years. And if you enjoyed this kind of story layered over real Texas game camera footage, take it as a reason to get outside and pay attention to what's living around you. For more Texas outdoors and wildlife, this is the Matt Out Here YouTube channel, and I'll see y'all on the next one.